Hi, everybody. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Inside Scoop with Sue. And today I am here with Karol Darsa. Dr. Karol Darsa is a licensed psychologist, author of the Trauma Map, and founder of Reconnect. She has more than 20 years of clinical and administrative experience in trauma and mental health disorders. And you can find her at Karol Darsa Reconnect on Facebook. And you have a website. What's your website?
ReconnectCenter.com.
ReconnectCenter.com. So, Karol, thanks so much for being here with us.
Thank you for inviting me.
You know, no one wants to be popular for the wrong reasons, but right now, your expertise in trauma is really important for us to learn about because, as we all know, COVID has been traumatic for, most of us in various ways. So can we start with, is there like a definition of trauma that is universally understood to be the definition of trauma?
Yes, there is. It's any stressful event that really leaves the person feeling overwhelmed and unable to cope with what's coming up.
So it's not the highest bar we can imagine. Like in my mind, it used to be like, something really traumatic like rape or like, physical abuse, that kind of thing. But it sounds like this can be something that just disrupts your life.
For sure. A divorce can be traumatic as well.
Okay. Well, so now our kids, they have experienced an unusual year and a half. And for many of them, that has resulted in like really tough things that they're dealing with: depression, anxiety. Does this definition of trauma look different in teenagers?
No, it's the same thing. It's just about how they react to it that might look different, because adults might be sort of more obvious, but with teenagers, you might have just different reactions. Like they might just all of a sudden isolate, and that could be a sign that they are going through a traumatic experience.
And are you finding that COVID has exacerbated the situation we know for everybody, but teenagers in particular?
For sure. There's actually a huge rise of addiction, unfortunately, among young people, because that's a way to cope with it, right? And depression and anxiety and sort of like sense of hopelessness and not wanting to do something or not being able to see the future. Those are some other things that we're seeing increasingly.
So there's two conversations that we see going on on our different platforms. One of them is, and they're all around kind of the same behavior, but one is parents feeling like their kids are being defiant and insolent and maybe just rotten, like they feel hate coming from them and then they have hate going back at them. Can some of that be masking of trauma?
Definitely. Even if the child is not traumatized during this pandemic, we have to understand they're all under tremendous amount of stress. And teenagers especially cope with stress in a different way. They have not built yet tools to learn how to regulate themselves. So it's not like, oh yeah, I don't feel good, let me talk to someone. It's more just like a direct acting out that shows up. So where is it going to go? To the closest people that they know, parents. So among their friends, they might kind of look okay, but next to the parents, they're going to show actually really their true feelings. It's just in an indirect way, but it will show up there.
So some of the things that we might perceive as like regular teen behavior and we're writing it off might be something to be looked at more deeply. And so how do we as parents kind of break through that barrier that a teenager has created, and even a dynamic that's so negative back and forth? Is there a way for us to break through that and find out, dig deeper with our kids, what's going on?
Yeah, first of all, I think we should compare our kids to our kids before COVID rather than kids to other kids, because that's an important thing. And if you know your child, if normally he's an outgoing person and all of a sudden you're seeing them much more isolated, you should start suspecting. And it's very easy to look at the behavior right away, but what's the underneath reason is always a good question. So rather than like, what's wrong with you? Hey, how are you feeling? Would be a great question. And maybe just even automatically assume this must be affecting you. You want to talk about it, but really approaching with gentle, caring attitude rather than let me tell you what you did wrong.
So that's great. if there's so much tension in the house, it's
Mhm.
pretty hard to kind of pivot and say like, okay, yesterday we had a really bad encounter, or the last year we've had really bad encounters, but I want to see if we can change this. How does someone do that from both sides? It's really hard.
Yeah, I think as parents, we first have to take care of ourselves emotionally in order to be able to really help our kids. Because if we are overwhelmed, which most parents are, it's going to make it so much harder. So, however you can find it as a parent, going to a professional or going to your friends and just finding ways to really release your stress. And then you can approach your child from that, not really forgetting to put yourself in their shoes. I mean, being an adolescent is a time to just be free and independent, and you're learning to sort of go on your own. You're still attached to your parents, but there's a sense of identity of who you are. And all of a sudden, pandemic just took care of all of that, and it's like, nope, you're not going to figure out who you are. You're going to stay home. That's much more of a shock to a teenager than to an adult.
Is there anything we can give them? Like it's so outwardly driven. How do we give autonomy when you're still like stuck in a house with your parents?
We can. I mean, we can first of all teach them some tools of how to take care of yourself emotionally, right? One is validating their emotions so that they don't think they are crazy themselves. Teaching them mindfulness skills would be actually a very good tools. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with mindfulness, but it's really about teaching yourself and your kids a tool to learn how to be here in the moment and tolerate the emotions and not judge them rather, as bad or good, and sort of making peace with just being here and feeling your body rather than just getting stuck in obsessive thinking that we often do when we're stressed. So when we can start practicing this ourselves, then we can really teach our kids. And it's a good role modeling to say, hey, I'm struggling too. I understand you. Here's what helped me to feel calmer overall. And I can share that with you. And
okay, I'm going to encourage everyone who's listening, if you have any comments or questions, put them in the chat. And Karol, you told me when we talked earlier about mindfulness in a way that I hadn't heard before, because mindfulness to me is a commitment of time and I guess emotional connection to this that I've never found the space for. But tell us a little bit about how easy you make it.
Yes, you can use mindfulness as I'm talking to you right now. So even though I'm fully concentrated on our conversation, maybe 10% or 20% attention in my mind is in my body. Just really being aware that I'm here. Like I can feel my feet. I can feel I'm sitting on my chair that's moving. Just sort of really being aware of the here and now. I can hear the sounds around me and sort of what's really happening surrounding my environment. And that helps me to just sort of calm down and become much more focused in here. And you can use that when you're eating, which will be actually a great way to really just stay quiet for a few minutes and go, wow, I'm really enjoying, like savoring the taste in your mouth. So it's not like I'm going to leave everything, sit down, do meditation, right? It's an open eye. It's a day-to-day thing. When you're walking, do you really look around, or are you just thinking, okay, what am I going to cook next when I get home? So just pay attention to the trees. Feel the warmth of the sun in your face. Those are little ways throughout the whole day that you can actually practice mindfulness.
So I walked this morning and I told my friend about my conversation with you, and we stopped to look at the birds. We commented on the sun, and we both acknowledged that our typical walk is to get through it, get some good talking in, and get productive. And this was like it was noticeably different, and it wasn't time consuming. It wasn't really a big commitment. So thank you.
You're welcome. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. I love when a tip can make a difference, and it's not going to overwhelm your life. It's not one more to do on your to-do list.
Right.
So do you think our kids are receptive to this kind of idea, and how do we suggest it to them when maybe there's so much snark going on that it just doesn't feel like there's room?
I think role modeling is the best way to show, because just saying it, and if you don't do it, then it just like empty, they are so much into the electronics, which is normal. But maybe in the dinner time, turning off everything and just having a conversation and taking a minute and saying, hey guys, let's just look around, like, wow, we're all sitting here together and making eye contact. And as you do, that's like, what are you noticing? Just a minute of that could be helpful. I didn't tell you this the other time when we talked, but there's something called EFT, Emotional Freedom Technique. It's a tapping technique that is extremely easy to use. I won't be able to teach you in 2 minutes, but you can Google it and you can YouTube the videos. It is such a great thing for teenagers to use because it's so easy. You're basically tapping certain parts of your face, which are acupuncture points, and it calms the nervous system down really like within minutes. And it's so fast. You can do it when driving. You can do it when you're on the phone with a friend that's upsetting you. They won't even have to see you. And it's used throughout the whole world.
And is that something you use in your own life?
I do for myself and with my clients especially, definitely.
Interesting. And it's not like reading a book. You can just watch a video and know what to do.
You can learn it in 5 minutes. It is so easy. EFT.
What does it stand for again?
Emotional Freedom Technique.
Okay.
EFT.
Does anybody listening do that? Anybody know anything about it? I'm going to try it afterwards because I love quick fixes. Like I don't want another job added to my plate, but I really loved looking at the birds this morning. It was just like, I can't even believe how it changed. It just changed the walk. It's so weird. It's so weird how you can be out in the outdoors and still be as purposeful as you are in the rest of your day. And doing that kind of, it was a calmer. It really was.
We spend so much time in our heads, and that takes us out of our bodies. And that's what makes us feel so anxious or upset all the time.
Okay, so Christina and Bridie had not heard about it, but they're both going to try it. So, come back and tell us on this thread when you do it and tell us how it went. We'd love to hear back from you. Okay, so going back to our teenagers, these are really good suggestions for how we can help them. Of course, they have to be willing participants, which is always so challenging. But I think you had a few things, and I jumped in with the mindfulness. Is there anything else to add to that?
No, that's what I was adding, the EFT. Actually, I just remembered I have a YouTube video on how to do EFT.
Okay. So go to YouTube and look you up and type in
Karol Darsa, Reconnect, or the trauma map. Either way, you can find me on my YouTube channel. I show how to do EFT, and I show how to do a grounding technique, which will be good for the parents. The children probably are not going to want to do that. But I use it with my teenagers. I have 2 myself, and it's pretty helpful. There's one more technique that I teach. There's about a sound thing. It's like when you're frustrated, you want to go, ah! There's like a technique of letting steam go in just like 1 minute. Also, as a parent, it's really a great technique to release the stress immediately. And then you can just go about your day.
It's like the roar we all want to do when we're furious. It's really actually there's a brain connection it releases. It actually does.
Yes. Actually, it's funny that you said roar because it sounds like first woo like that, but it turns into wow. You do like this. It's taken from a Tibetan practice and makes it more modern now. But in 1 minute, you'll feel a sense of release, especially if you're angry with your kids.
Gee, I don't know anyone who has ever felt that way.
No.
So your teenagers are open. Your own teenagers are open to this when you suggest things to them.
The VOO, the sound, and the tapping is the ones that I've been able to do it with them.
Excellent. Okay, yeah. We have Catherine and Nancy who both have heard of EFT, and Catherine does it. And Nancy said it was useful with attention challenges too.
Mm-hmm. For a lot of different things you can use, actually. Once you start using, you'll see.
Okay, fantastic. Okay, give us one last thought.
Last thought, be compassionate with your teenager, really understand them. Just knowing that certain things are appropriate for their age will go a long way. So don't go against, because that just creates a power struggle, and that's the age of power struggle anyway. So you want to just stay really present and understand them, and hopefully have a better communication that way.
Okay, so wishing all of us luck in this journey with our kids during COVID, and hopefully the weather and vaccinations are going to ease up on all of that, and it will probably create some other problems. I'm sure you can expect to see, right? Some other things as we kind of re-enter?
Well, yes, but also we're going to see a bit of a long-term effect of this. Just because we're out back to normal, it doesn't mean that everyone's going to feel like as if nothing happened. It's going to leave some mark on us for a while. So just expect still some mental health challenges in terms of especially mood. So don't be surprised.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for being here. Dr. Karol Darsa, thank you so much for those great